Hello and welcome back, adventurers. This is Captain TTRPG, and today we're talking about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Hello and welcome back, adventurers. I'm so happy to have you here with me today. Our topic today is actually going to be skills. So, for those of you who've played either D&D 5th edition or older versions of D&D or many video games, to be honest, you've dealt with skills in one variety or another. That term skills does have a more specific meaning in TTRPGs like Pathfinder 2nd Edition or D&D 5e. But either way, you get an idea for this. Maybe in some games like Skyrim, if you're a video game player, you might think of blacksmithing, or if you're coming from D&D, you know things like perception or religion. And it's important the way that they interact with the rest of the game that you're playing. When I first thought about trying Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I wasn't talked to about skills. That is to say, people weren't highlighting it as, hey, this is why you play Pathfinder2e. They talk about the 3-action economy. They talk about marshals and casters being on relatively similar power levels and just having different roles in combat. A lot of other aspects of the game that are really critical and that I love. But they didn't really talk about skills. And skills is actually one of Pathfinder's strengths in my mind. Why is it so important to me? Why do the skills stand out? So I come from D&D 5e as a DM there, and I GM in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And one of the things that I always had a hard time with in D&D was how little there was to go on, how to adjudicate the different skills that you have there, especially in combat. People were looking for more variety, things that they could do with their characters on their turns, and it was hard to roll skills into that a lot of the time. Sure, out of combat, people found good uses for things, especially with the social skills. There was pretty clear use of it, and while you're adventuring out in the wild, some of them had pretty clear use as well, but not all of them. And there were skills that just felt useless, and you kind of suggested people don't take. And it was always difficult to figure out what to do with most of them in combat, except for maybe athletics. Well, thankfully, in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, we get that definition. We've got very specific things you can do with your skills, and then also some ideas of what you could do beyond those specifics, which I appreciate both sides. I do like the ability to kind of adjudicate things on the fly as a GM, but that's me, and I've been doing this for a while, and I enjoy that side of the improv. There's a lot of GMs out there who want it very spelled out. And in Pathfinder, we get it kind of both ways. So before we get too far, I should be really clear about what the skills are in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. These aren't what you use to make your attack rolls. These aren't your spellcasting abilities, specialized set of capabilities you get. So what are the skills in Pathfinder 2e? Really quickly, they are acrobatics, arcana, athletics, crafting, deception, diplomacy, intimidation, medicine, nature, occultism, performance, religion, society, stealth, survival, thievery, and lore. But lore is kind of its own thing. We'll deal with that at a different time. So those are your skills. And for people coming from other systems, a lot of those sound pretty familiar. So you'll have some idea of what they're about. But they play a larger role. So while some skills did play a role in D&D 5e, for instance, with certain classes, it was fairly minor. You really got by without having to worry about your skills. There were classes that had you acquire more skills, a rogue being a great example, but you still didn't know how to use them in an encounter. You really focused on using them outside of that. And that's important too, right? When we look at the 3 pillars of play, you've got combat, you've got social, and you've got exploration. And in Pathfinder 2e, every single skill has some application in the pillar of play of combat, and at least one of the other 2 pillars. Whereas I have find challenges using that same idea in something like D&D or some other systems I've played, where it's harder to utilize your skills. Some systems are based entirely around skills, and that's great. We're really just kind of looking at how they work here and a comparison to D&D, because I assume a lot of the audience looking at Pathfinder is looking at understanding that difference. Okay, so I'm not going to go deep into any of the specific skills in this video. In fact, this is kind of a kickoff video. I'm going to start making videos for every single skill. Just get their own video because there's a lot to talk about. With each skill, we've got what ability score it's tied to, which is good to know. But more than that, it's, hey, what can I do with this skill when I'm not even trained in it? What do I get for being any level of trained with this skill? And then what are the skill feats I can take over time? Because again, Pathfinder is all about feats. Every skill has associated skill feats, and they can allow you to go really deep if you want to, or you can just, take a couple levels of training and grab a myriad of skill feats across different skills. It really depends on what you want, but they'll give you something unique to do. And there's even some classes that heavily utilize some of the skills, and I'll be calling those out in the skill videos as well. So I do want to say, for those of you who are still unsure about what I mean, what skills can do for you, I'd say some are a little more obvious than others. Let's take athletics, for instance. I think there's probably a pretty good guess people can give to what you can do with athletics in this system and in many others. Some examples from Pathfinder, you could make you jump really high. I mean, even just out the gate, just jumping takes athletics, or grappling people takes athletics, tripping people. So athletics isn't that hard necessarily to understand. Stealth, same idea. You can hide and you can sneak. But there's some that maybe you don't immediately see what you can do with them, especially in combat, right? Just to highlight a few, deception can let you feint an attack before you attack the foe to make them off guard. With medicine, you can heal somebody in combat. You don't need any sort of magic to do it. With nature, you could discover details about an enemy, like vulnerabilities and resistances. Acrobatics can allow you to roll underneath an enemy creature and get up behind them. Intimidation can let you frighten enemies. So every skill, we will get into exactly what it can do for you, but they'll all have application. And after we get through all of those details about them in those videos, I'll also talk a little bit about how you can adjudicate them if you don't want to go as deep, because when you're starting out as a GM, it might be a lot to learn all the details of every single skill. And there is a way that you can run those skills with a lot less depth of knowledge at the beginning and just slowly build up. So I'll definitely get into that to help you run them with a little more ease, a little less sophistication. Obviously, the examples I just gave work in combat. Not going to just focus on combat. In those other videos, we're going to talk about exploration and social encounters. Some kind of cross the lines, but usually a skill has application in one of those two pillars and then in combat. So we'll try to stick with that. I want to help people as much as possible. I want this to feel easy because it can be, and it can make encounters a lot more fun, gives your players a lot more variety with what they can do, and it feels like a lot more depth to your character. I'm going to kick off these videos alphabetically, so we are going to go ahead and start with acrobatics, so watch for that. Hopefully it'll be coming relatively soon, and you can join me. We will talk about everything you can do with acrobatics. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and as always, adventure on.